Did you know that the average person loses over 2 hours a day just because of small distractions? A buzzing phone, a flashing notification, or even a knock on the door. All of these are stealing your focus and your precious time. If you let this continue, you'll stay trapped in a cycle of procrastination and low productivity. So how can you eliminate distractions instantly and take back control of your life? When it comes to productivity, the greatest enemy is often not a lack of motivation or even a lack of skill, but the silent presence of distractions. They creep in unnoticed, nibbling away at our focus until the hours slip through our fingers and we are left wondering where the day went. That is why the very first step in learning how to eliminate distractions quickly is to identify what they actually are. Without clarity, we end up trying to fight invisible opponents, swinging blindly, never knowing which force is pulling our attention away. The process of identification is not glamorous, but it is absolutely critical, because once you understand the exact nature of the obstacles in your way, you can design strategies that neutralize them in seconds instead of wasting time on generic solutions. Imagine you are working on an important project. You sit down with a clear plan, but within minutes, your phone vibrates, an email notification pops up, or a coworker taps you on the shoulder. These are obvious distractions, easy to see, but there are subtler ones too. Maybe your desk is cluttered with unfinished tasks that whisper for your attention, or perhaps your own mind wanders because you haven't clearly defined what success looks like for the next hour. Identifying your distractions is like shining a flashlight in a dark room. You suddenly see the tripping hazards that were invisible before. The first layer of identification comes from observation. Over the course of a few days, notice when you lose focus. Keep a simple log. What were you doing before you got distracted? What took your attention away? How long did it take you to return to your original task? At first, this might feel tedious, but within a short period of time, patterns will appear. Maybe you find that every time you check one notification, it leads to 5 minutes of scrolling. Maybe you realize that certain times of day are particularly vulnerable, like mid-afternoon when your energy dips. Each entry in that log is a clue pointing to your biggest enemies. Another angle is to categorize distractions into external and internal. External distractions are easier to recognize. The buzzing phone, the noisy environment, the chatty colleague, the endless flood of emails. Internal distractions are trickier because they masquerade as part of you. They include daydreaming, self-doubt, boredom, and the urge to multitask. Many people underestimate internal distractions, yet they are often the most powerful. You can silence your phone, but what about the restless thought that you should check the news? Or the memory of a conversation you had yesterday? By naming these forces, you strip them of some of their power. Once you have identified your distractions, the next step is prioritization. Not all distractions are created equal. Some cost only a few seconds of attention, while others can derail your productivity for hours. For example, a quick glance at a message might take only moments, but if it leads to a spiral of responding, browsing, and then forgetting what you were working on, the cost becomes enormous. One useful framework is to ask which distractions are frequent and which are impactful. The ones that occur often and cause significant time loss are the true threats to eliminate. First, there is also the matter of disguised distractions, activities that look productive but actually divert energy from your main goal. For instance, you might convince yourself that reorganizing your digital files or endlessly tweaking a presentation slide is important work, when in reality it is procrastination wearing a mask. These are sometimes called fake productivity traps. Identifying them requires honesty. Does this action move me closer to the outcome I want today, or is it simply an easier way to avoid the hard work? By asking this question regularly, you train yourself to distinguish between meaningful action and distraction disguised as busyness. A practical method to deepen this awareness is the 5 whys technique. When you notice a distraction, ask yourself why it happens. If you say, "I get distracted by social media," ask why. Perhaps the answer is, "Because I feel bored with the task." Ask why again, "Because I don't see the immediate value of what I'm working on." Digging deeper reveals the root cause. Maybe it's not the social media itself, but a lack of motivation tied to unclear goals. When you uncover this level of detail, you are better equipped to address the real issue, rather than fighting the surface symptom. The beauty of identifying your biggest distractions is that it empowers you to act quickly. Imagine knowing that your top 3 distractions are phone notifications, background noise, and mental fatigue after lunch. With this clarity, you can silence notifications before starting work, use noise-canceling headphones, and schedule your most important tasks in the morning when your energy is high. Each of these adjustments takes only moments but saves hours of lost focus. The speed of your response is directly proportional to the clarity of your identification. Another benefit is psychological. Distractions often carry guilt. We beat ourselves up for being unfocused, for wasting time, for not having enough discipline. But when you frame distractions as specific, externalizable forces, they become manageable challenges rather than moral failings. Instead of saying, "I'm lazy," you can say, "My phone notifications interrupted me 3 times in the last hour." The latter invites a practical solution. By shifting the language, you turn distraction into a problem to solve, not a personal weakness. It is also important to recognize that distractions change over time. What pulls your attention today may not be the same a month from now. Life circumstances, work environments, and even emotional states evolve, bringing new challenges. That is why identifying distractions is not a one-time exercise but an ongoing practice. Periodically reviewing your distraction log, reflecting on your productivity, and staying curious about what steals your focus ensures that you remain adaptive. In many ways, this step of identification is like building a map before a journey. Without a map, you may wander endlessly, encountering obstacles you didn't expect and wasting energy on detours. With a map, you can anticipate challenges, prepare responses, and navigate directly toward your goal. Distractions are inevitable. They are part of the human experience. But by knowing exactly what they are, you shift from being a victim of interruptions to being the architect of your focus. At its heart, identifying your biggest distractions is about awareness. It is about pausing long enough to look at the forces pulling your attention and deciding not to let them remain invisible. Once the invisible becomes visible, you gain the power to act decisively. And that single step, awareness, lays the foundation for every other strategy you will use to eliminate distractions quickly. Once you have identified your biggest distractions, the next natural step is to take control of the environment where most of those distractions live: the digital world. In today's era, our devices are both tools of immense productivity and endless temptation. They connect us to knowledge, opportunities, and people across the globe. But at the same time, they are gateways to countless interruptions that demand our attention. If you think about it, most modern distractions no longer come from the outside world, but from within the glowing screens we carry in our pockets, place on our desks, or keep open in the background. That is why learning to control your digital environment is one of the fastest and most effective ways to eliminate distractions quickly. Consider for a moment how many notifications you receive in a single day. Social media updates, promotional emails, chat messages, app reminders, breaking news, software updates, the list is endless. Each ping, vibration, or flash of light is designed to trigger curiosity, to make you pause what you are doing and to redirect your attention. Even if you only check for a few seconds, research shows that it can take several minutes to regain the same depth of focus you had before the interruption. Multiply that by dozens of notifications and you begin to see why digital distractions are productivity killers. The good news is that they can be managed with deliberate choices. The first line of defense is simple: silence unnecessary notifications. Most devices allow you to customize which alerts you receive. Ask yourself honestly, do you really need to know the instant a social media post is liked, or when an online store has a sale? The answer is almost always no. By disabling these non-essential alerts, you remove a large portion of the noise that interrupts your focus. You can then choose specific times during the day to check those platforms intentionally rather than reactively. This simple habit restores control. You decide when to engage instead of letting your devices decide for you. Another powerful tactic is the use of website and app blockers. These tools are like digital guards standing between you and your most tempting distractions. You can set them to restrict access to social media, streaming platforms, or news sites during work hours. The beauty of these tools is that they create friction. Often distractions thrive because they are only one click away. When you add an intentional barrier, like needing to enter a password or wait through a timer, you give your brain a moment to reconsider. That pause is often enough to break the automatic cycle of distraction. Email deserves special mention because it is one of the most deceptive digital distractions. Many people keep their inbox open all day, responding instantly to every message, believing this makes them efficient. In reality, it fragments attention into countless tiny pieces. A more effective approach is to schedule email checks at specific times, perhaps once in the morning, once after lunch, and once before finishing work. During the rest of the day, keep your inbox closed. This simple shift allows you to focus deeply on tasks without the constant tug of incoming messages. Beyond controlling notifications and access, it is also important to design a digital workspace that encourages focus. On your computer, close unnecessary tabs and keep only the tools you actually need for the current task. Arrange your desktop so that distracting icons are out of sight. On your phone, consider creating a work mode by moving distracting apps to a separate folder, or even deleting them temporarily during important projects. Small environmental cues can have a big psychological impact. When your digital space looks clean and purposeful, your mind is more likely to follow suit. Of course, digital control is not only about subtraction, it is also about intentional addition. There are many apps and tools designed to support focus rather than sabotage it. For example, task managers help you keep priorities clear, timer apps encourage focused work sessions, and note-taking tools reduce the mental load of trying to remember everything. By filling your digital environment with supportive tools, you transform technology from a source of distraction into a partner in productivity. One underestimated element of controlling your digital world is managing your relationship with your phone. For many people, the smartphone is the single greatest source of distraction. Its design encourages constant checking, even when no notification is present. To counter this, you can adopt simple practices. Keep your phone out of arm's reach while working, use grayscale mode to make the screen less appealing, or even place it in another room during deep work sessions. These small acts create distance, breaking the cycle of compulsive checking. Another angle is to use the built-in features of your devices that are specifically designed to support focus. Most operating systems now include modes such as Do Not Disturb, Focus Mode, or Screen Time Limits. These tools exist because even tech companies recognize how distracting their platforms can be. Activating these modes is a quick, practical way to reduce interruptions without needing third-party solutions. The key is consistency. Make it a routine rather than a one-time experiment. The psychological effect of controlling your digital environment cannot be overstated. When your devices are no longer constantly buzzing, when your workspace is free of cluttered tabs, and when you know that distracting sites are blocked, you feel a sense of calm. That calm is fertile ground for concentration. Instead of bracing yourself against the onslaught of interruptions, you can sink fully into the task at hand, confident that nothing will unexpectedly steal your attention. This state is often described as flow, and controlling your digital environment is one of the fastest ways to enter it. Some people worry that reducing digital engagement will make them less responsive or disconnected. In truth, it makes your responses more intentional. When you check email at set times, you still reply, but you do so on your terms. When you silence notifications, you still engage with social platforms, but only when it fits your schedule. Far from disconnecting you, this approach actually improves your presence in both digital and physical interactions because your attention is no longer constantly divided. Ultimately, controlling your digital environment is about reclaiming sovereignty over your attention. The digital world is designed to compete for your focus. It is not neutral. Companies spend billions engineering features that keep you hooked. Recognizing this reality does not mean rejecting technology, but rather using it deliberately. By choosing which signals to let in and which to block out, you transform your devices from masters into servants. And once that shift happens, distractions lose their grip almost instantly. After you have identified your distractions and taken control of your digital environment, the next step toward eliminating distractions quickly is to master your relationship with time. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through time boxing or using the Pomodoro technique. Both methods work on the same principle. Your attention is strongest when it has clear boundaries, and your brain stays focused more effectively when work is divided into intentional bursts. Rather than leaving your mind to wander in the vague expanse of, I need to work for the next few hours, You create structure that encourages deep focus while still giving space for recovery. Let's start with the concept of time boxing. Time boxing is the practice of assigning fixed blocks of time to tasks or activities in advance. For example, instead of saying, "I'll work on this report until it's done," you might decide, "I'll spend 90 minutes on this report from 9 o'clock to 10:30. This subtle shift changes the way your brain perceives the task. Without boundaries, tasks expand endlessly, inviting procrastination and distraction. With a time box, you have a finish line in sight, which energizes your focus and discourages the temptation to check your phone or wander into unrelated work. It's the difference between running with no clear endpoint versus running toward a specific marker. You naturally pace yourself better when you know where you're headed. The Pomodoro technique is a more specific form of time boxing that has been proven effective for millions of people worldwide. The idea is simple. Set a timer for 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a short 5-minute break. After completing 4 Pomodoros, take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. This cycle creates a rhythm that balances intensity with rest. The 25-minute work period is long enough to accomplish meaningful progress, but short enough that your brain does not feel overwhelmed. Knowing that a break is always just around the corner reduces resistance to starting, which is often the hardest part of working. One of the key reasons the Pomodoro technique works so well is that it combats mental fatigue. Our brains are not designed to maintain unbroken concentration for hours on end. Left unchecked, attention naturally drifts after about 20-30 minutes. By aligning work intervals with this natural cycle, the Pomodoro technique prevents the drop in focus before it happens. The scheduled breaks act as mental resets, allowing you to return to the next session refreshed. This not only eliminates distractions, but also helps you sustain productivity for longer periods without burning out. Another hidden benefit is how time boxing creates urgency. Think about how focused you are when a deadline is looming. That same effect can be recreated on a smaller scale with time boxing. When you know you have only 25 minutes to make progress, you are less likely to indulge in distractions because every minute counts. The ticking timer becomes a source of motivation rather than pressure. Even if the task is something you've been avoiding, the thought of just 25 minutes makes it feel manageable. This psychological trick helps you break through procrastination and prevents your attention from scattering. There's also an accountability factor. When you time box or use the Pomodoro technique, you can measure exactly how much focused time you've put into a task. Instead of vaguely saying, "I worked on this for a while," you can say, "I completed 6 Pomodoros today." This gives you a concrete sense of accomplishment, which fuels momentum. It also allows you to track where your time actually goes. Often, we believe we have spent hours working, when in reality, much of that time was lost to distractions. Time boxing reveals the truth and helps you adjust. One of the most common objections to structured time techniques is that they feel restrictive. People worry that they won't have enough flexibility or that creativity will be stifled by rigid blocks. But in practice, the opposite is true. Structure creates freedom. By containing work within specific windows, you free your mind from the constant internal debate of, should I keep working or take a break? The decision is already made for you. This reduces mental friction, which is itself a major distraction. You simply follow the rhythm, and in doing so, you unlock more creative energy because your brain is no longer occupied with managing time. Time boxing also helps with task prioritization. When you assign a block of time to a task, you are forced to ask, how important is this task compared to others? If it doesn't deserve a dedicated block, perhaps it isn't as critical as you thought. This stops distractions in the form of fake productivity, where you spend too much time on tasks that feel urgent but don't actually matter. Instead, you allocate your prime focus to high-value work, and smaller or less important tasks can either be grouped together or eliminated entirely. There are also ways to adapt the Pomodoro technique to fit your personal style. Some people prefer longer work intervals, such as 50 minutes of focus followed by 10 minutes of rest. Others might shorten it to 15 minutes if they struggle with attention at first. The method is flexible. The core principle is simply to work in intentional sprints with regular breaks. Over time, you will discover the rhythm that matches your natural energy patterns. What matters most is not the exact number of minutes, but the deliberate alternation between focus and recovery. When combined with the Earlier steps of identifying distractions and controlling your digital environment. Time boxing becomes even more powerful. Imagine starting a 25-minute Pomodoro with your notifications silenced, distracting websites blocked, and your phone in another room. You've removed the obvious temptations, and now the clock adds a sense of urgency. This layered approach almost guarantees that your attention stays where it should. In just half an hour, you can accomplish more than you might otherwise do in 2 or 3 hours of unfocused work. The real magic happens when these practices become habits. At first, you may need to remind yourself to set timers or create time boxes in your calendar. But over time, your brain begins to anticipate the rhythm. You slip into focus more easily, and distractions lose their grip because your mind is conditioned to respect the boundaries of time. What once felt like effort becomes second nature, and the benefits compound. Tasks are completed faster, energy is conserved, and your confidence grows because you know you can control your focus at will. In the end, time boxing and the Pomodoro technique are not just productivity hacks, they are ways of reclaiming ownership of your attention. Distractions thrive in the absence of boundaries, but when time is structured, they struggle to find a foothold. By giving your work clear edges, you make it easier to dive in deeply, eliminate interruptions swiftly, and emerge with tangible progress. In a world full of noise, structure is the shield that keeps your focus intact. Once you have a rhythm of structured focus through time boxing or the Pomodoro technique, the next step to eliminating distractions quickly is to look at the space around you. Your physical environment plays a much larger role in your ability to concentrate than most people realize. A cluttered desk, a messy room, or an environment filled with random objects competing for attention can create invisible distractions that pull you away from your work without you even noticing. Decluttering your physical space is not about achieving some minimalist aesthetic. It is about creating an atmosphere that supports focus, calm, and clarity. Think of your mind as a mirror of your environment. When your desk is piled high with papers, cables, snacks, and unfinished projects, your brain subconsciously registers each item as a to-do or a source of unfinished business. Even if you are not actively looking at them, they create mental noise that weakens your ability to concentrate on the task in front of you. Psychologists often call this the open loop effect. Each object represents something unresolved, which occupies space in your working memory. The more clutter you have, the more your brain is juggling in the background, and the easier it becomes to slip into distraction. By contrast, a clean, organized space communicates clarity. When you sit down at a tidy desk with only the essentials present, your mind interprets that signal. This is a place for focus. Distractions are minimized not because you are exercising sheer willpower, but because there are fewer external cues competing for your attention. In this way, decluttering becomes a silent but powerful partner in focus. The first step in decluttering is to evaluate what is truly essential. Look at your workspace and ask, what do I actually need to complete the task I'm working on right now? Often the answer is surprisingly little. A computer, a notebook, maybe a pen. Everything else can be set aside, stored neatly, or removed from sight. For example, if you are writing a report, you probably don't need yesterday's stack of documents or a dozen pens scattered across the table. Simply clearing them away can make the space feel lighter and more conducive to concentration. One useful method is the reset rule. At the end of each work session, take a few minutes to reset your space back to a neutral state. Put tools back in their place, recycle or file unnecessary papers, and leave your desk ready for the next session. This small ritual prevents clutter from building up and turns the act of sitting down to work into a fresh start each time. Over days and weeks, this habit builds consistency, and your workspace becomes a reliable anchor for focus rather than a source of distraction. Beyond your desk, consider the broader environment. Noise, lighting, and even the colors around you can influence focus. For instance, constant background chatter or television noise can pull your attention without you realizing it. Solutions like noise-canceling headphones, ambient sound apps, or simply closing a door can eliminate these auditory distractions. Lighting also matters. Dim or harsh lighting can cause fatigue and make your mind wander. Natural light is ideal, but if that is not possible, use lamps with warm, consistent brightness that reduce strain. Even something as subtle as the color of your walls or the arrangement of furniture can affect mood and energy. Minimalism is not the goal for everyone, but intentional design is. Some people thrive with completely bare desks, while others prefer a few personal touches like a plant or an inspiring photo. The key is to ensure that every item in your space serves a purpose, either practical or emotional. A plant might improve air quality and provide a calming presence, while a photograph of a loved one might remind you of your motivation. But piles of random papers, unused gadgets, or clutter from unrelated projects only dilute focus. It's also important to address physical comfort, because discomfort itself can become a distraction. An uncomfortable chair, poor posture, or an awkward desk height might not seem like distractions, but over time, the physical discomfort nags at your brain, pulling energy away from the task. Investing in an ergonomic setup, a supportive chair, a desk at the right height, a keyboard positioned correctly, pays off because it removes these subtle physical interruptions. When your body feels supported, your mind is free to stay on the work. Another overlooked factor is the accessibility of distractions in your space. For instance, if you keep your phone on your desk, even if it is silent, the mere presence of it can reduce your focus. Studies show that having a phone within eyesight drains cognitive resources because part of your brain is unconsciously monitoring it for potential interaction. The solution is simple. Put it out of sight, ideally in another room. Similarly, if you keep snacks, magazines, or unrelated materials within easy reach, your brain will be tempted to use them as escape routes when the work feels challenging. By placing these potential distractions farther away, you make it harder to slip into them mindlessly. The act of decluttering itself can also be a mental reset. Many people find that tidying their space before starting a major project helps them feel more ready and focused. It's as if cleaning the physical environment clears away mental fog as well. This doesn't mean spending hours on cleaning as a form of procrastination. Rather, it means dedicating just enough time to remove the obvious distractions that stand in your way. There is a deeper psychological effect too. When you take control of your physical environment, you reinforce the belief that you are in control of your attention. This creates a sense of agency. Instead of feeling like a victim of constant interruptions, you are actively shaping a space that supports your goals. That mindset carries over into other areas of productivity, making you less susceptible to distraction in general. Ultimately, decluttering your physical space is about intentionality. Every object, every sound, every arrangement either contributes to your focus or takes away from it. By consciously designing your environment to remove distractions, you create conditions where focus flows more naturally. It's not about perfection, but about alignment, aligning your surroundings with your intention to work deeply. In a world full of external noise, a clear and organized physical space is like a sanctuary for your mind, where distractions have no place to hide. The final step in eliminating distractions quickly is to set clear boundaries and priorities. You can identify your distractions, control your digital environment, adopt time-boxing techniques, and declutter your space. But if you don't set firm boundaries with the world around you and with yourself, distractions will find a way back in. Boundaries are the invisible fences that protect your focus, while priorities are the guiding lights that remind you why you are working in the first place. Together, they form a defense system that ensures you stay on track even when external demands and internal impulses try to pull you away. Let's start with boundaries. One of the most common sources of distraction comes from other people. Colleagues dropping by to chat, family members interrupting, friends sending urgent messages. These interruptions often feel harmless in the moment, but they add up to significant lost time and broken focus. Setting boundaries means communicating clearly that your work time is sacred. This could be as simple as telling coworkers, "I'm unavailable from 9 to 11 each morning," or letting your family know that when the door is closed, you should not be disturbed unless it's truly urgent. These boundaries remove ambiguity, and when reinforced consistently, others will begin to respect your focus time. Boundaries also apply to how you signal your availability. Wearing headphones, for example, is a simple but effective cue that says, "I'm focused, please don't interrupt." Creating a Do Not Disturb sign for your workspace, using calendar blocks that mark you as busy, or even changing your online status to unavailable are small actions that reinforce the message. The key is consistency. If you break your own boundaries by responding instantly to interruptions, people will learn that your focus time is negotiable. Boundaries only work when you honor them yourself. But boundaries are not only external, they are also internal. Internal boundaries involve resisting the urge to multitask, to wander into unrelated tasks, or to give in to the smallest temptation. For example, you might set a boundary that during a 25-minute Pomodoro session, you will not check your phone, open unrelated tabs, or start new tasks. These self-imposed limits keep your energy concentrated. Without internal boundaries, you may sabotage yourself even in a perfectly controlled environment. It takes discipline at first, but over time, respecting these limits becomes a habit and distractions lose their hold. Alongside boundaries, priorities are equally important. One of the biggest reasons people get distracted is because they are unclear about what matters most. When you sit down to work without clear priorities, everything feels equally important, which makes it easy for distractions to sneak in. But when you know your top goals, you can measure every potential interruption against them. Does this serve my priority, or does it pull me away from it? That clarity acts as a filter, allowing you to eliminate distractions almost instantly. Setting priorities begins with asking, what is the single most important task I need to accomplish today? Once you identify it, make that task your anchor. Do it first before anything else, or dedicate your highest energy time block to it. By aligning your focus with your most important priority, you not only make progress on what matters most, but also reduce the power of lesser distractions. They lose their appeal because you are engaged in something that feels meaningful. Another way to strengthen priorities is to write them down. Each morning, list your top 3 tasks for the day. Keep that list visible on your desk or screen. Whenever you feel the urge to drift into distraction, glance at the list and remind yourself, these are the things that truly deserve my attention. Writing them down externalizes your commitment, making it harder to justify slipping into unproductive activities. It also provides a sense of direction, which reduces the anxiety that often fuels distraction. Boundaries and priorities also intersect in an important way. Saying no. Many distractions arrive in the form of requests from others. New tasks, invitations or favors. Without clear boundaries and priorities, it is easy to say yes to everything, spreading yourself thin and leaving little room for focused work. Learning to say no respectfully is a skill that protects your time. When you decline requests that don't align with your priorities, you send a message to yourself and others that your focus matters. This is not about being rude. It is about being intentional. One powerful technique is to create a personal priority filter. When faced with a potential distraction, ask yourself 3 questions. Does this align with my top goals? Does this need to be done right now? Am I the best person to do it? If the answer to any of these is no, then it's likely a distraction disguised as productivity. This filter allows you to make quick decisions without overthinking. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond with clarity. It is also worth noting that boundaries and priorities are not rigid walls. They are flexible systems that should adapt to your context. There will always be exceptions, emergencies, opportunities, or situations that genuinely require your attention. The goal is not to eliminate all interruptions forever, but to reduce the default state of distraction. By setting clear rules most of the time, you create space to focus deeply. Then, when true exceptions arise, you can handle them without feeling that your entire day has been derailed. The psychological power of boundaries and priorities lies in how they simplify decision-making. Without them, every distraction requires negotiation. Should I check this message? Should I say yes to this request? Should I do this task now? Each decision drains mental energy, creating fatigue. With clear boundaries and priorities, the answers are predetermined. You know when you are available and when you are not. You know which tasks deserve attention and which can wait. This reduces cognitive load, freeing up energy for the actual work. Ultimately, boundaries and priorities give you ownership of your attention. Distractions thrive in chaos, ambiguity, and a lack of direction. Boundaries provide the protective walls, and priorities provide the compass. Together, they transform your work environment into a place where focus is natural and distractions are quickly dismissed. By honoring your limits and aligning your actions with what matters most, you create a system where productivity is no longer a battle of willpower, but the natural outcome of a well-structured life. Remember, you can't wait for the world to stop distracting you, but you can choose to eliminate distractions quickly and protect your focus. Every second you stay focused is one step closer to your biggest goals. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you never miss the secrets that help you break through every day.